Windows. Today we'll be going through some network fundamentals and we will be seeing the installation of Windows Server. Apart from that, if Bhagirath and Jashpalji wants to go through the yesterday's session, I'll share the recording link, what we saw yesterday. Okay, so let me share my screen. Okay, so we are going to see what is communication or what are communication types, what does a network means, and differentiating public and private IP addresses. So if we talk about communication, so basically we have three types of communication in regards to IPv4. Just a second. Okay, so we have in regards to IPv4 three communication types. We have unicast, which is one to one. So then we have multicast, one to many. We have broadcast, one to all. Now this is meant for IPv4. But when we talk about IPv6, so IPv6 doesn't understand the term broadcast. There is no broadcast communication type in our IPv6. In IPv6, instead of broadcast, we have anycast, which is one to the closest. So whichever the nearest machine is on, it will talk to that machine in replace of broadcast. So there we have anycast. Now unicast means one-to-one communication. So I'll not deep dive in this because everyone is experienced technical person. So unicast, broadcast, multicast, everyone knows. Now we will understand the perspective of networking, what a layman person or an non-technical person would consider what is a network. So for a normal person who is a home user or a non-technical user, they consider network as that they are using a laptop or a desktop which is connected through a cable to the switch, and that switch is connected to the internet. That is a normal understanding of a non-technical person. Or if they are using a wireless device, so then what that wireless is connected to the router and router is connected to the internet. But this is not the actual consideration. So when we talk about enterprise network, so enterprise is appears similar. It appears similar, but not it is not the exact thing what we see as technical persons. But a normal user who is just a user, non-technical user, let's say finance user is there, HR user is there. So what they understand, that is represented here. But in regards to technical terms, when we talk about a network, right? So network is basically connection of devices or interconnection of devices. So here we can have internet. So this is our corporate network, for example.
Santosh bhai.
Yeah,
Okay.
Jagdish.
Join, okay.
Yes, yes, Jagdish.
Okay, I mean.
Okay, okay. So when we talk in regards to network, so our enterprise network appears in this kind of environment where we have our LAN segment, then we will have access switches, We can have a core switch. So access switches are generally connected to core switches. So we can consider this as a core switch and this as an access switch. So generally the access switch will be connected, or the end users will be connected to the access switch. Access switch will be connected to the core switch, the main switch, and the main switch will be connected to our firewall, and will be connected to the router. And from router, we will be exiting, or the exit will happen to the internet. But here, when we are talking about network, so it is a just interconnection of devices. Physically, we have connected all the devices. That is a network. Then what does networking means? So networking means communication happening between the devices. So until unless communication is not happening, that is not networking. Network means connection of devices. For example, I'm having this machine and this machine. So they are connected to switch. So that is a network. But when they talk with each other through the network, so that is known as networking. Moving ahead, we have internet protocol, IP protocol. So
Santosh,
yeah,
your display, we can see that first slide only, that IP communication types.
We are also. I am also not showing a next slide actually. I think I need a full screen. Next slide we can't see properly.
okay, okay. I got it. I got it. Just a second.
You need to be full screen. Yes.
Just a second. Just a second. Now it is visible.
Yes. Yes. It's visible.
Let me share it. No, hold on. Just a second. Just a second. Okay, now it is visible
Yes.
as full
Yes. Yes.
screen.
Now it's
Yeah,
okay.
it is proper now.
Yeah, maybe I'm using two screens, so that was the reason. I don't know why it happened. Okay, so as we were discussing, I'll repeat it in a fast mode manner. So unicast.
Need to repeat, you can jump up to that slide.
Okay, so is it okay with everyone? Shall I jump or shall I repeat
Yes.
it?
Yes. 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 You can.
Okay, so we'll go to networking, this network, right? So our machine is connected to the switch, that is network. And when communication happens between these machines or interconnected machines, so that is termed as networking. So till now we have covered. We're talking about internet protocol or IP. So IP stands for internet protocol. So we can consider that that is a road, sorry, that is a truck. IP is a truck which is carrying a lot of large data, right? If and it is used to efficiently move large amount of data. So we can consider this is my IP, internet protocol. Now the road can be considered are physical mediums like DSL cable, Ethernet cable, wireless communication. So these are the network topology is our road. So the truck is our internet protocol. And we have designed the roads for this truck. So what designs we have? So it can be a wireless communication, Bluetooth communication, or physical cable communication. So in cable also we have copper cable, we have fiber channel cable, etc. Now, under this IP, we have boxes of TCP and UDP. So under my truck, so inside my truck, I have TCP and UDP boxes. We can consider like that. So let's say this my box is TCP, this is UDP, this is TCP, this is UDP, this TCP example. Now under each TCP or UDP box, we have the actual data, that is the application data. Now application can be anything. It can be a DHCP communication, it can be a DNS communication, it can be an HTTP communication, it can be HTTPS communication. So any communication can happen under TCP or UDP. Depends. Now DNS supports UDP communication, DHCP supports TCP as well as UDP communication. So depending upon the application, so let's say if this is my UDP box, inside this I'll have UDP type of data. This is my TCP box, then I can have in this TCP kind of data. So this IP is carrying multiple TCP UDP boxes. It is not a single box. It is carrying multiple TCP UDP boxes. Now, under this IP, so we have a lot of headers defined. So we have Ethernet header in that packet. We have Ethernet trailer and we have Ethernet payload. Now, what is under that payload? So we have IP. So this is our IP, actual internet protocol. So it has an Ethernet header. It has an Ethernet trailer. So I'm not deep diving in the network part. So network training is separate. So I'll not talk about what is a frame and etc. So I'm just giving a small example to understand how the data gets communicated. So under this IP, we have IP payload. So what is that IP payload? Either TCP or UDP boxes. So that is TCP or UDP payload. And under that TCP or UDP payload, we have the actual data. So this is how the communication happens between one device to another device. So it can be a wired device or a wireless device or a handheld device, which is mobile or tablet. Now, if we talk about TCP and UDP, so they are transported inside the IP protocol. So technically, if we talk, they are encapsulated inside the IP protocol and encapsulated. So they are inside the truck. Now, two ways to move data from place to place. So we have two ways to move data from place to place, that is TCP or UDP. Now we have ICMP also, but ICMP is not actual data, that is for administrative purposes. Whereas the actual, when we talk about user data can be TCP or can be UDP. Now this works at the OSI layer 4, the transport layer, and different features for different applications. So TCP has another features, UDP has another features. We'll talk in a moment. And it also uses multiplexing. Now, what does this multiplexing means? So let's say, for example, inside my truck, that is inside my IP, Internet Protocol, I am having TCP box 1, TCP box 2, TCP box 3. Now, in the first TCP box, I am having HTTP data, for example. In TCP box 2, I am having DHCP data, for example. In TCP box 3, I am having Active Directory data. Right, so port number for HTTP is 80, for DHCP it is 67, server side, client side 68. For Active Directory, we have port number 389. Now, at the same time, different size of data and different types of data are going in the same internet protocol. That is known as multiplexing. use many different application at the same time. So at the same time, TCP also can go multiple TCPs and multiple UDPs also, for example. So that is known as multiplexing. Now talking about TCP. So TCP stands for Transmission Control Protocol, which is a connection oriented protocol. It is connection oriented. So it has a formal connection setup. So it will say, I am connected with you, and now you can transmit the data. Or it will say to the another device that from another end, I am connected with you, data is coming for you. Right. So it has reliable delivery, it has recovery from errors, and it can manage out of order messages or retransmission. Out of order messages or retransmission. Example. So let's say now we are in the training and we are communicating with each other. So if somebody is not able to hear me, he can ask me again, right? That what I said. मैंने क्या बोला था? So we can have again that I can pass on that message again. So that is out of order messages or retransmission of the data. Now, as it has the capability of flow control, the capability of flow control means what? The receiver can manage how much data is sent. Receiver. So for example, this is the sender, this is the receiver. Sender is sending the data. ये data भेज रहा है. Now sender speed is let's say 100 Mbps and receiver speed is 1000 Mbps. Receiver speed is 1000 Mbps. Now what will happen if sender is sending the data? The receiver can easily capture the data. But now let's say this is 10,000 Mbps. That is 10 Gbps. Sender is having 10 Gbps, whereas receiver is having 1 Gbps. So what will happen in this case? If let's say this sender is sending 20,000 boxes at a time with the speed of 10 Gbps, will the receiver will be able to receive at the same speed? Yes, no?
No, no.
Hmm. So it can't receive because the capacity to receive the data is 10 times less or 90 times 90% less. So now here receiver will say, as I'm talking about TCP. So the receiver will say, I don't have that much bandwidth. Kindly send the data at the speed of 1000 Mbps. Now, those the sender is having the capability of sending the data at 10 Gbps, but it will only send the data at 1 Gbps. उसका कैपेसिटी होने के बावजूद वो 1 Gbps के स्पीड से ही डेटा भेजेगा. So that's why here we say receiver who is receiving the data will decide how much data is to be sent at a time. Now, whereas we compare with UDP, so UDP stands for User Datagram Protocol, which is a connectionless protocol, and there is no formal open or close to the connection. It is like a radio. What they want to give, they will give. We want to hear, we can hear. We don't want to hear, we will turn it off or we will drop it. So it has unreliable delivery. Because of unreliable delivery, there is no recovery of the messages and no reordering or no retransmission. So let's say if I had set up a meeting call, but if it was a webinar, so you in webinar you might have the options to chat, but you can't come and directly ask a question at your time, or I can't ask for responses immediately. Right. So I'm just giving an hypothetical example. Now there is no flow control. There is no flow control. So sender will only decide how much data to be sent. So this is again sender, this is a receiver. If this is having 1000 Mbps, 1 Gbps of speed, and this is having 10 Gbps of speed. So sender will decide. So if receiver doesn't have the capacity also, still sender will send its own speed only. Whether data is getting received or not getting received, there is no liability that data was received. So if you consider the examples of some older machines, let's say before Windows 8 or before Windows 7, you have seen on the screen while you were transmitting the data, you got some errors on the screen with a pop-up. There was error in transmitting the data kind of messages. So this happens because of UDP is uncapability. Now talking about ports. So what are ports? So basically, if we talk about the port, so port is an entry or exit point. So for example, if I was taking the training in the classroom, so if a person is coming late or if it wants to come inside or wants to go outside, they can take a permission that we want to go or we want to come, for example. So in the same manner, when an application is sending any data, so it goes through some door. That door is known as ports. And how it will identify through which door it should pass. So then we have for that port numbers. So for example, I am having a room where a lot of data is there. Let's say multiple applications are running. And here I have kept a single door port. So my DHCP data can go, DNS data can go, Active Directory data can go, HTTPS data can go, WDS data can go. Now, how this door will identify which data is of what? So that's why we have port numbers. For example, for Active Directory, we have port number 389. For HTTPS, we have 443. For WDS, again, it works on port number 67 of DHCP. DHCP, we have 68 server side. DNS has port number 53. So though the port door is same, but door numbers are different or passages are different. That for example, if you want to go from this, you will go in the first lift, you will go in the second lift, you will go in the third lift example. Right. So now ports are like IPv4 sockets. So they are termed as sockets. Now, what does this socket include? So socket includes server side IP address. If it is server side communication, if it is client side communication, then it will include client side IP address. Or basically, we can say source and destination IP address. Source and destination IP address. So we can have server or client side IP address. We can have protocol, TCP or UDP, what application we have. So port number for that application, basically three things it includes. So when it is transmitting, I am transmitting from source. The destination will identify that this packet was from this IP address. This is the protocol, TCP or UDP. And in that protocol, the port number is DNS or 389. So that is Active Directory protocol. So it will go and forward the data to the room of the Active Directory. Now, when we talk about ports, so we have non-ephemeral ports or permanent port numbers. So those are fixed port numbers. These are also known as fixed. You can't change the port numbers. So for example, port number 80 is of HTTPS. So I can't go and change port number 80, but I can assign a new port number to HTTP. I can give port number 8080. That is possible, but I can't assign port number 80 to Active Directory service or to DNS service or to any another non-HTTPS service. That is not possible. So 80 number port will be only used with HTTP. But if I talk about port number 8080, I can use port number 8080 with my database server. So which is 4022. The default port number for SQL is 4022, but I can change that port number. So I can assign 8080 port number also. I can assign this to DHCP also. I can assign this to another communication medium also. So I can give or assign another port numbers. Some services are modifiable, some are not modifiable with the port number also, like DNS, DHCP, you can't modify the port number. But for HTTP, you can modify from the web server or from IIS. So this is usually as a service. Just a sec. So this is usually as a server or a service. So generally, these port numbers are assigned to some important services or known services or servers. Apart from that, we have ephemeral ports or temporary port numbers, or we can say open ports, which are from 10242 to 65535. So total 0 to 65535. So total we have 65,536 port numbers. 65,536 port numbers. So these are open ports. Now from these open ports, some ports are predefined for some services. Like for example, if I talk about port number 8530 and 8531. So these port numbers are assigned for SCCM service. Now that doesn't mean I can't change. I can change, but it has implications. So I would not be able to use 8530 and 8531 for another service because that my SCCM for this port number is defined for SCCM. But that doesn't mean it is fixed. I can change the port number still. So they can be determined in real time also. Now moving ahead. So port numbers, we have TCP and UDP ports can be any number between 0 to 65,535. Most servers use non-ephemeral port numbers, which are known as permanent port numbers. But it will not be always the case. As I discussed an example, port number 80, I can assign another port number to my HTTP service. That is possible. Now, port numbers can't be considered for security. They are not used for security. They are only the medium of communication. So service port numbers need to be known well. What does that statement mean? So when we are IT people, so we take care of the delivery part. So when we are performing the delivery, we support many things. So we are supporting SCCM, we are supporting Active Directory, we are supporting end users. The technical person should be aware of the standard known port numbers. So next week I'll be sharing a list of the known port numbers. It will be around 100 to 150. You can go through and if you go through 5, 6 times, you will easily remember it. Now port numbers aren't, sorry, TCP port numbers aren't the same as UDP port numbers. So sometimes your any service is using TCP as well as UDP. So for that service, TCP port number can be different and UDP port number can be different. Now moving to a small refresher thing where we have types of networks. So everyone knows this concepts. LAN, which operates within a limited geographical location. It can be within a single office, within a single floor, or within a single building. So that is known as LAN. Then we have metropolitan area network. So it can span within a city. So let's say if I'm having my one office in the same city in location A and another branch in location B, but the same city. So when it has a connectivity, so connectivity can be through any medium. It can be through direct dial-up connection. It can be through a broadband link, that is ILL, internet lease line. It can be through a shared broadband. It can be through MPLS link, or it can be through a P2P link. But if it is within a city, it is known as metropolitan area network and wide area network, which operates over a large geographical location. So it can be termed outside the city boundaries or any global boundaries. Now, apart from that, we have two known terminologies. So PAN stands for Personal Area Network. So let's say, for example, I'm having a smart watch or I'm using a phone with smart applications, which I have connected with my phone. I have connected through my Wi-Fi. I have connected through my tablet to my TV. So that is an example of personal area network where for my personal devices, I am setting up a single network. I can see the things on multiple devices synchronized. Whereas talking about campus area network, which is termed for colleges or universities, or it has a second term, which is corporate area network. So when you have multiple LANs which are spanning in a single campus, but between different buildings, between different buildings. So that is known as campus area network or corporate area network. Then we have network devices, NIC and MAC address. So NIC is a physical device which is bond, which is attached to your motherboard nowadays in the laptop as well as in your PCs. So if I talk about 10-15 years before, it used to come on the PCI slot. So now it is attached on the motherboard, a small form factor it has. So it stands for network interface card, or it is also referred as Ethernet card, LAN card, etc. And on that, a physical address is bound. That means it is fixed, which is known as MAC address, which stands for media access control. It stands for media access control, and it is a unique identifier. How it is a unique identifier? So it is divided into two portions, total comprising of 48 bits. So one portion is 24 bits, another portion is 24 bits. Now this is the vendor code. Now vendor means, let's say for example, my Ethernet manufacturer is Ethernet card manufacturer is Broadcom, or maybe Intel, or maybe Dell, or maybe Lenovo example. Right. So that is the vendor code. And the second is the serial number. So no vendor will have multiple serial numbers, right? Serial number will never be same for each vendor. So each vendor will start with one and it will keep on increasing the serial number. So when they are combined together, so let's say this portion can be same. So this serial number, one is of Broadcom, one is of Intel, but the vendor code will be different. So when we combine it together, so they become uniquely different. So we have network devices which we generally use nowadays. So we don't use hub, rarely we use, or maybe a repeater also rarely we use. But yes, BSNL we can see somewhere in on the roads between two cables, one device is hanging. That can be a repeater or it can be a hub. So we generally use a switch and a router. So switch is an intelligent device. So it broadcasts for the first time when it doesn't have the data. Once it starts learning the data, it will start maintaining the MAC table. So in this table, it maintains the information of the device with the MAC address mapping information. Then we have a router. So switch is used to communicate between or within your LAN. But if you want to communicate outside your LAN or outside your network, so we used a device called router. Now, if we talk about switch, so we can have L2 switch or also L3 switch also. L3 switch has some features of router, like you can configure DHCP, you can configure VLANs, virtual LANs, etc. Whereas L2 doesn't have that flexibility. And configuration is only possible in L2 and L3 switches on manageable switches. So we have one category of manageable switches, one category of non-manageable switches. Generally, non-manageable switches are used in the home, personal, or small office environment, whereas manageable environment is for medium to large kind of or size of organizations. Now talking about IPv4 and IPv6 addresses. So IPv4 is of 32 bits, whereas IPv6 is of 128 bits. Now IPv4 address is segregated into 5 classes. So these are our 5 classes. So class A, B, and C is used for LAN and WAN only. So which portion is for LAN, which portion is for WAN? I'll talk on the next slide. Class D is used for multicasting, example, news agencies, right? So they do multicasting. So they use class D IP addresses. Class E used for research and development, example, ISRO kind of organizations or for military purpose. So they use class E IP address. Now talking about, so we are going to mainly focus on A, B, and C. But before moving to LAN and WAN segmentation, which is for LAN, which is for WAN, we will understand the range of IP addresses. So for class A, basically we have 4 octets for every IP address. We have 4 octets. Now this class range is segregated based on the first octet. Now what does octet means? So octet means the 4 bits, sorry, 4, this is known as 8 bits. 8 bits stands equals to 1 octet. So here I'm having 8 bits, 8 bits, 8 bits, 8 bits, which equals to 32 bit of my IPv4 address. From the first octet, we have segregated or we have splitted the range. So your second, third, and fourth octet is not going to change. Second, third, fourth octet is not going to change. So when we are talking about the division, so when we start, so let me clear this screen. I need to talk something else also. So class A range starts from 0.0.0.0 to 126.255.255.255. Right? I conveyed correctly, na? 126 or 127. Did some mistake? Yes. Did some mistake?
Yes, yes.
So the range is still 127. I agree, but 127 IP address range we can't use. 127 IP address we can't use. Usable is still 126 only. Right? Why we can't use? I'll talk in a moment after the next slide. Now, if we talk about class B range, so class B range starts with 128.0.0.0 to 191.255.255.255. Class C range we have from 192.0.0.0 to 223.255.255.255. Class D range starts from 224.0.0.0 to 239.255.255.255. Class E range starts from 240.0.0.0 to 255.255.255.255. Now this 126 range, 126.0.0.0 to 126.255, sorry, not 126, 127. So 127.0.0.0 to 127.255.255.255. This is known as loopback address. This is known as loopback address. So we can use this for self troubleshooting of the machine. Self troubleshooting of the machine. Moving to next slide. So our subnet mask is predefined. It is predefined. So this is known as class full subnet. Class full subnet. Now for each class, so as I conveyed, we'll be talking about A, B, and C only. So it is written in the octet format as network host, 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 and the network portion, the subnet or the octet is full, where the host portion is empty. So as it has have empty, it will be having zero values. So that means 255.0.0.0 is my default subnet mask. That doesn't mean I can't use any custom subnet mask. I can use it. So that is a portion of subnetting or part of subnetting, which is a network chapter. Will not talk about that. We're just clearing the fundamentals here. Then we have class B IP address. In that we have subnet. So we have two portions of network and two portions of host portion. So 255.255.0.0. For class B, sorry, for class C, it is 255.255.255.0. Now, based on the subnet mask, we identify in which network our IP address is. Based on the subnet mask, we identify in which network our IP addresses. But apart from that, we have public and private IP addresses. How we can decide which is public IP address or private IP address? So IEEE has predefined this range. We don't need to put any logic. We have standard definition of that. The standard definition says that class A. So in class A, the IP address from 10.0.0.0 to 10.255.255.255 is your private IP address. Apart from this, any IP address in class A is a public IP address. Apart from this, any IP address in your class A is a public IP address. Same goes with class B and class C. For class B, we have the IP address 172.16.0.02, 172.31.255.255. So this is my private IP address range. So any IP address from this class, apart from this range, is a public IP address. So how we can decide what is the class B? So class B IP address is given here. So from 128.0.0.0 to 191.255.255.255. So from this range, this class B range is the private. Apart from that, any IP address falls under public range. And the same way it goes for class C. So for class C, private IP address range is 192.168.0.0 to 192.168.255.255. Any IP address apart from that is the public IP address. Now the last slide of network fundamentals is APIPA, automatic private IP address. So this IP address is not considered, or you can't assign this IP address, which is 169.254.0.0 to 169.254.255.255. So why we can't assign this IP address? Because this comes under automatic assignment. APIPA, automatic private assignment, means what? Let's say I'm having my machine. I have installed an operating system, but I didn't configure any static IP address. Neither my machine is talking to DHCP server to take the IP address, but it needs to tell in the network that yes, I am standing, I need an IP address. So at that time, the OS installed on this machine, the OS installed on that machine, whether it is a Windows OS, Linux OS, Android OS, iOS, anything, automatically it will assign an IP address to this machine, through which it will show the presence on the network, but it can't communicate on the network. It cannot communicate on the network. So that IP address comes from this range, which is known as APIPA IP address range, and it is a portion of class B IP address. It is a portion of class B IP address. Clear till here? Any doubts?
No doubt, Santosh.
Yes, Jagdish, Bhavik, Bhagirath.
हाँ हाँ एक्चुअली संतोष सर,
हम्म
प्रीव्यू साइड करो ना एक बार, जो इससे पहले वाला जो है वो स्लाइड।
हम्म
उसमें ना मेरे को क्लास ये क्लास 2 और क्लास ये है ना, ये बी और सी क्लास, ठीक है। ये जो
हम्म
सी क्लास वाला तो हम लोग यूज़ करते हैं 192.168 आईपी वाला, ठीक है, हम लोग अपने
हम्म
ऑफिस में। बट ये जो
हम्म।
क्लास ये और क्लास बी जो है वो हम लोग कहाँ पे यूज़ करते हैं, कुछ मतलब स्पेसिफिक डिवाइस
तो
उसके?
ओके, सो ये मैं भी यूज कर सकता हूँ, आप भी यूज कर सकते हो। ठीक
ओके
है, जो प्राइवेट आईपी एड्रेस है कोई भी बंदा यूज कर सकता है, आप अपने घर पे भी यूज कर सकते हो, ऑफिस में भी यूज कर सकते हो, प्राइवेट आईपी एड्रेस। सो उसका
ओके
कोई किसी के पास रिस्ट्रिक्शन नहीं है, किसी से परमिशन लेने की भी जरूरत नहीं है आपको।
ओके।
जैसे
नहीं
हम
जैसे
दुकान
उसको, हाँ हाँ बोलो बोलो।
जैसे हम दुकान से टीवी बाय करके आए, हम कंप्यूटर बाय करके आए, तो उसमें मैं कुछ भी एप्लीकेशन डाल सकता हूँ, करेक्ट।
ओके।
तो इसी तरह मैं मेरे घर पे कोई भी डिवाइस लगा हो या
हाँ
मेरे कंपनी में कोई भी डिवाइस लगा हो, उस पे मैं
हाँ।
प्राइवेट आईपी एड्रेस लगा सकता हूँ। नाउ ए कब यूज करना है, बी कब यूज करना है, सी कब यूज करना है, इस पे आते हैं।
ओके।
ठीक है, तो
हाँ।
अगर मेरा एक नेटवर्क जहां पे मेरे मशीन 250 से ज्यादा है,
ओके।
तो मैं क्लास बी पे चले जाऊंगा। अगर
ओके।
250 से कम है तो मैं क्लास सी यूज करूंगा,
ओके।
क्योंकि एक सिंगल नेटवर्क में क्लास सी में मैं टोटल मेरे पास 254 आईपी एड्रेस ही मिलेगी मुझे।
ओके। ओके।
मैं
ओके।
क्लास भी यूज करता हूँ तो मुझे 16,000 अप्रोक्स आईपी एड्रेस मिलती है।
ओके।
अगर मेरा
अगर
नेटवर्क
उससे ज़्यादा करना
20,000
है।
से बड़ा है, मतलब 16,000 आईपी एड्रेस से बड़ा है, तो मैं क्लास
ओके।
ए यूज करूंगा, जिसमें मुझे
ओके।
10 लाख आईपी एड्रेसेस के आसपास मिलती है।
ओके। ओके, तो उसको हम लोग डीएससीपी पे भी असाइन कर सकते हैं, ये
यस,
वाले
वो हम
क्लास बी
देखेंगे।
क्लास सी। ओके
हम
ओके।
क्लास ए ही यूज करने वाले हैं हमारे लैब में।
ओके ओके, देन आई हैव नोटेड। ओके, आई हैव
ठीक
गॉट
है,
इट, आई हैव
हम
गॉट
लोग
इट।
लैब में क्लास ए ही यूज करेंगे, उसके थ्रू ही समझेंगे सारा।
ओके, आई हैव गॉट इट।
ठीक है, सो यस, जगदीश एंड भगीरथ, एनी डाउट्स?
No, no.
यस भगीरथ? Maybe Bhagirath has some mic issues. Okay, so now we will take only more 7 to 10 minutes and we'll see the installation of 2019. Right, so we are going to see every lab on server 2019. So I'll close my PPT and we will navigate to Internet browser and we'll go to Google and we will say download Windows Server 2019. So the first link is coming. So we'll click on the first link. Now here you can see. So we have three things here. So let me pull my pen. So here you can see we have try Windows Server on Azure, download the VSD and download the ISO. So if you want to try on Azure, it will take you to the Azure portal. This is a VSD file. We don't VSD file because it will be pre-installed. We want to see the installation. So we will download the ISO file. We will download the ISO file. So let's click on the download the ISO link. It's saying register your free trial. So I'm going to fill the information in a little bit fast mode. So now the download option comes. Again, you can see we will select English language. If you want French, Chinese, German, Italian, you can download the OS in that language. Depending upon your client's environment where we are supporting, we might need sometimes this kind of language OS. So first is ISO downloads, second is VHD, third is try on Azure. So we'll click on this link. Let's click on this link. So my download has begun. So let me save my E drive. I'm saving outside my E drive. So it has started. It will take approx 10 minutes. It is saying probably I'm having the ISO. Let me check. Okay, I don't have, probably I have deleted it. Let it complete. It will take 5-7 minutes only. So Monday we will covering some basic topics of configuration of Windows Server, and we will see the installation of Active Directory. And from Tuesday, we will start Active Directory. After that, we'll come to permissions, DFS, FSRM, WDS, DHCP, DNS, all things we'll cover. Okay, so let it complete. We'll have the feedback. So we'll start with Bhagirath. What you learned today, anything new? Yes, Bhagirath? Okay, so Bhavik, what you learned new?
Actually, I have learned about the MAC address part. There are two parts of MAC address. एक तो होता है कुछ तो लाइक दैट कोई कंपनी का एक कोड रहता है और बाकी का दूसरा जो पार्ट होता है वो कुछ तो कोई
Serial
और
number.
हाँ मतलब वो मतलब मुझे नया कुछ समझ में आया है वाली चीज़ नया सीखा है मैंने।
ठीक है। Yes, Jagdish?
या एक्चुअली ये जो नेटवर्क का जो पार्ट था वो हमने कॉलेज में भी सीखा हुआ था, मीन्स के समझा हुआ था, लेकिन ये इतने टाइम में फिर भूल भी बहुत सारा कुछ ऐसे मीन्स की याद नहीं था, तो फिर ये सब फिर से हो गया अभी।
रिवाइज हुआ है पूरा।
रिवाइज हो गया पूरा फिर।
ओके, तो जसपाल जी से भी पूछते हैं अगर उन्होंने कुछ नया सीखा हो तो।
मेरे लिए नया कुछ नहीं था इसमें संतोष। ये जस्ट एक चीज आप जो बोले कि इफ अपिपा आईपी assigned, okay, if there is no any DHCP or static IP, that system will take apipa IP. If two system will take apipa IP, those two system will communicate each other.
No.
If we can assign static IP as a apipa, for example 169 IP series, we can assign to two system in the same network. Will it communicate?
No, 169.254 series will not communicate.
Okay.
So what happens, अगर मेरे पास 3 मशीन है, तीनों को स्टैटिक आईपी भी नहीं है, DHCP भी नहीं है, OS उन तीनों को अपने आप से आईपी एड्रेस दे रहा है। तो जब OS उनको अपिपा आईपी एड्रेस असाइन करेगा, उससे पहले नेटवर्क में चेक करेगा वो कि अपिपा आईपी एड्रेस भी किसी को मिला हुआ है कि नहीं। अगर समझो कोई मशीन को 169.254.12.54 मिला हुआ है, तो वो 12 डॉट सीरीज का ही आईपी एड्रेस देगा, लेकिन 54 नहीं देगा दूसरा मशीन।
समझ गया वो मैं कि अगर अगर हम असाइन करते हैं, फॉर एग्जांपल 2 मशीन है मेरे पास, उसमें हमने स्टैटिक आईपी डाल दिया 169.254.0.1 एंड टू 169.254.0.2 और नेटवर्क में हमने कनेक्ट कर दिया या पॉइंट टू पॉइंट कनेक्ट कर दिया, तो कम्युनिकेट होगा, डेटा ट्रांसफर होगा।
एज पर माय नॉलेज तो नहीं होगा। इनफैक्ट वो असाइन भी नहीं करने देना चाहिए आईपी एड्रेस, बट आई हैव नेवर टेस्टेड, बीइंग वेरी ऑनेस्ट। मैंने टेस्ट नहीं किया है।
कोई दिक्कत, यू कैन टेस्ट इट, यू विल नो।
मतलब 2 आईपी एड्रेस 2 मशीन में लेता है, ऐसा क्वेश्चन था, राइट?
नहीं भाई। सो अगर जो अपीपा आईपी एड्रेस है उसी रेंज का मैं आईपी एड्रेस ले रहा हूँ और मैन्युअली असाइन कर रहा हूँ मशीन पे,
ओके।
तो वो कम्युनिकेट करेगा कि नहीं? क्योंकि अपीपा से वो कम्युनिकेट नहीं कर सकता है, लेकिन वही सेम रेंज का आईपी एड्रेस मैं मैन्युअली असाइन कर रहा हूँ मेरे नेटवर्क में।
ओके ओके ओके, मैं भी पूछता हूँ, मतलब ऐसा कुछ क्वेश्चन है तो मेरे लिए भी तो नया है एक्चुअली। ओके।
मैंने तो आप लोगों के नॉलेज के लिए ही पूछा था, ठीक है। इट विल कम्युनिकेट,
ओके।
डेटा ट्रांसफर भी होगा बिटवीन दोस 2 मशीन्स।
ओके।
मैंने टेस्ट नहीं किया है, बीइंग वेरी ऑनेस्ट। मतलब मैं
नहीं,
जनरली
कोई दिक्कत नहीं, आई हैव ऑलरेडी टेस्टेड।
ओके।
मतलब प्राइवेट एड्रेस अपीपा को भी हम लोग मैन्युअली आईपी डाल के कम्युनिकेट कर सकते हैं एक दूसरे को, ऐसा बोल रहे हैं?
ये मैंने भी क्यूरियोसिटी के हिसाब से टेस्टिंग करने के लिए ही किया था।
ओके।
तो मुझे भी इंफॉर्मेशन ऐसा दिया गया था कि वो नहीं करेगा, ठीक है, बट आई हैव टेस्टेड एंड गॉट सक्सेस।
नहीं, बट अगर ये अपीपा है, अगर डीएससीपी मतलब अपीपा है, तो वो भी तो यूनिक रहेगा ना, मतलब सेम आईपी तो नहीं लेगा ना 2 मशीन में?
सेम नहीं लेगा, वो अलग अलग लेगा, ठीक है,
ओके
पर
ओके।
सेम नेटवर्क में है, ठीक है। स्टैटिक आईपी भी आप दे दोगे अपीपा वाला,
हाँ हाँ
इट
हाँ
विल
हाँ।
कम्युनिकेट,
ओके ओके
क्योंकि एक एड्रेस मिलता है उसको, एक यूनिक एड्रेस मिलता है, उसकी वजह से वो कम्युनिकेट करेगा।
ओके।
जनरली कोई इस तरह से सोचता नहीं है, इसलिए।
मतलब मैं नेटवर्क का बंदा होता तो सोचता जरूर,
हाँ
मैं ये सारी चीजें सर्वर
इसलिए
में
मैं
सोचता।
क्योंकि कई बार जो हमको सिखाया जाता है वो हम मान लेते हैं, ठीक है, और
हाँ।
उसको क्रॉस चेक कई बार नहीं करते। तो मैं जब हाँ इंजीनियर हुआ करता था, ठीक है, उस टाइम पे
प्रैक्टिकली।
मैंने चेक कर लिया सब। इसमें पॉइंट्स क्या क्या है संतोष पूरे कोर्स में? वो ये जब तक डाउनलोड होता है, जैसे आपने भी बताया कि मंडे को हम देखेंगे डीएफएस एडी इंस्टॉलेशन, डीएनएस, डीएचसीपी, समथिंग लाइक दैट। हाँ,
मैं चैट में डाल देता हूँ।
कल है सेशन क्या?
हाँ नहीं, मंडे टू फ्राइडे।
ओके ओके, क्योंकि कल टुमारो आई एम ट्रैवलिंग।
नहीं मतलब मैंने एक्चुअली मंडे टू फ्राइडे रखा है, या सैटरडे किसी को प्रैक्टिस करना हो, संडे टाइम नहीं भी मिले तो दे कैन प्रैक्टिस ऑन सैटरडे।
करेक्ट। भाविक आप कहाँ पे काम करते हैं?
हाँ, ट्रांसजेल लाइटिंग लिमिटेड करके कंपनी है, उसमें एज अ टेक्निकल सपोर्ट इंजीनियर पे काम कर रहा हूँ।
ये मुंबई में છે જશવલ ભાઈ।
ओके।
अच्छा, जसवाल भाई ऑल्सो इज गुजराती?
ऑल
વિલમાર
गुजराती।
માંથી જ છે,
अच्छा,
જગદીશ ઓળખે છે।
વિલમારથી છે. ઓકે ઓકે, હું હતો ત્યાં વિલમારમાં एक्चुअली।
એકચ્યુઅલી ભાવિક મારી જોડે હતો,
ओके
અમે
ओके,
બંને સાથે કોલેજ કરેલી અને સાથે જ અમે જોબ ઉપર લાગેલા બંને।
अच्छा अच्छा, સરસ, ગુડ।
પછી તે મુંબઈ નીકળી ગયો અને હું મુંદ્રા જ રહ્યો।
બરાબર છે।
આ તો મુંદ્રા પણ સારું છે, હા।
મુંબઈ કરતા તો મુંદ્રા સાચે સારું છે।
હા, સિરિયસલી।
મુંબઈના સ્ટ્રગલ કરતા તો બેટર છે મુંદ્રામાં।
હા, હવે એટલે એ લોકોને એમ લાગતો નહીં કે મુંબઈ સારું છે।
બંને આમ
મને
તો
તો મુંબઈ
બંને
નથી
સેમ જ
ગમતું.
છે, બંને સેમ જ છે, ખાલી ટ્રાફિક ને જવા દઈએ.
ટ્રાફિક નો હા બહુ પ્રોબ્લેમ ટ્રાફિક માં.
મુંબઈમાં
મને
દરિયો છે,
મુંબઈમાં નથી
મુન્દ્રામાં
મજા
દરિયો
આવતી.
છે.
હા પણ મને મુંબઈમાં નથી મજા આવતી.
બંનેના સ્પેલિંગ ના ટોટલ જોશો તો
એમસી
સેમ
સ્ટાર્ટ
લેટર.
થાય.
નહીં એમથી
Yes.
સ્ટાર્ટ થાય, લેટર એ સેમ જ છે. મુંબઈ અને મુન્દ્રા ટોટલ બધું સેમ જ
છો
છે.
છો અક્ષર.
હમ એટલે કઈ ફેર નથી ટ્રાફિક સિવાય.
જસપાલભાઈ મેં ચેટમાં નાખી છે URL what topics will be covered in the 4 months complete.
ઓકે. બીજી એક વસ્તુ હતી સંતોષ કે જે IPv6 જે મલ્ટીકાસ્ટ ની જગ્યાએ એની કાસ્ટ છે, ઠીક છે, ક્લોઝેસ્ટ, તો મીન્સ કે એની અંદર ટ્રાફિક નીલ થઈ જશે ને, આ બ્રોડકાસ્ટ
હા
જેવા
હા
કશું જ નહીં,
હા કરેક્ટ. એમાં
નેટવર્ક કન્જેશન કશું નહીં મળે તમને.
કરેક્ટ કરેક્ટ કરેક્ટ.
તો આ જસ્ટ હું બતાવું છું કે આ લોકોને ખ્યાલ આવે.
Okay, so we have downloaded Windows Server 2019. So I'll open the folder. So there's my ISO. I'll rename it. So it is RH5. Okay, so this is my Windows Server 2019 ISO. So which is in my E drive. Okay, so now whatever labs we will be doing, so I'll explain the environment, what environment we will have, or I'm talking about Windows only. Okay, so हम लोग मिनिमम हमको 3 मशीन चाहिए, ठीक है. अभी जिसके पास 8 GB लैपटॉप वाला रैम का लैपटॉप है, so they will be able to create this environment, ठीक है. जिसके पास 8 GB रैम से ज्यादा अच्छा रैम है, लेकिन 4 कोर प्रोसेसर से ऊपर होना चाहिए. अगर 4 कोर प्रोसेसर है तो 16 GB रैम भी है तो कोई फायदा नहीं है, ठीक है. अभी कोर कहाँ से देख सकते हैं हम, तो कोर हम टास्क मैनेजर में जा सकते हैं, परफॉर्मेंस में, और यहाँ पे हमको देखो मुझे कोर्स 6 कोर्स है मेरे, ठीक है. यहाँ लॉजिकल प्रोसेसर्स 12 है मेरे, तो मेरे जो LPs है लॉजिकल प्रोसेसर्स कम से कम 6 होने चाहिए, कम से कम, ठीक है. अगर आप 8 GB रैम यूज कर रहे हो तो कम से कम 4 होना चाहिए. अगर आप 16 GB रैम यूज कर रहे हो तो कम से कम 6 होना चाहिए, नहीं तो फिर आपका मशीन इक्विवेलेंट टू 4 कोर 8 GB रैम ही काम करेगा, ठीक है. अभी 3 मशीन हम बनाएंगे, मतलब ट्यूसडे तक तो हमारे 3 मशीन बन जाएंगे, फिर हमको मिनिमम 3 मशीन लगेंगे, ठीक है. अभी क्या रोल रहेगा तीनों मशीन का वो मैं आज नहीं बात करूंगा, ठीक है. आज मैं सिर्फ इतना बात करूंगा कि दिस विल बी विंडोज सर्वर 2019. इधर मैं विंडोज सर्वर 2016 डिप्लॉय करूंगा, आप लोग 2019 यूज कर सकते हैं, कोई इशू नहीं है. 16 में इसलिए डिप्लॉय करूंगा ताकि मुझे आई वांट टू शो मल्टी OS एनवायरनमेंट, ठीक है. सो आप लोग इस पे जो मैं रोल डिप्लॉय करूंगा 16 में वो आप 19 में कर पाओगे. एंड ये हमारा रहेगा विंडोज 10 मशीन, ताकि जो भी हम सर्वर पे कॉन्फ़िगरेशन कर रहे हैं वो एंड यूजर साइड कैसे रिएक्ट होता है, एंड यूजर साइड कैसे दिखता है, वो हम विंडोज 10 पे देखेंगे. हम कुछ यूजर्स क्रिएट करेंगे और वो विंडोज सर्वर उसको बोलेंगे भाई तू जाके लॉग इन कर, एग्जाम्पल, ठीक है. तो ये 3 हमारे एनवायरनमेंट रहेंगे. अभी मेरा मशीन का कॉन्फ़िगरेशन अच्छा है तो मैं कुछ प्रैक्टिकल्स में 4 मशीन्स, 5 मशीन्स या 6 मशीन्स भी यूज करूंगा, ठीक है. तो आपको वो दूसरी मशीन्स यूज नहीं करनी है. कंसेप्ट इन 3 मशीन्स के बिटवीन ही काम करेगा, लेकिन आउटपुट दिखाने के लिए मुझे मल्टीपल मशीन्स लगेंगे. तो मैं 3 से 6 मशीन के बीच का एनवायरनमेंट बनाऊंगा, ठीक है. सो आप लोग 3 मशीन पे ही काम करेंगे तो आपका 80 to 90% प्रैक्टिकल्स हो जाएंगे. 10% वो सिमिलर स्टेप्स रहेंगे, जैसे मैं यहाँ पे डोमेन कंट्रोलर बना रहा हूँ, दूसरे मशीन पे एडिशनल डोमेन कंट्रोलर बना रहा हूँ, ठीक है. तो मेरा 4th मशीन हो गया एग्जाम्पल। तो वो आपको जरूरत नहीं है, आप इंस्टॉलेशन स्टेप सेम है, रेप्लिकेशन सिर्फ हम देखेंगे कैसे हो रहा है, बाकी जो हम यहाँ पे काम कर रहे हैं वो यहाँ पे भी हो सकता है। ठीक है, सो आपको 3 मशीन क्रिएट करने हैं जिसको भी प्रैक्टिस करनी है, और नहीं करनी है तो स्टिल इट इज अप टू यू। आई विल सजेस्ट कि सब लोग प्रैक्टिस करें। ओके, सो मैं यूज करने वाला हूँ VMware वर्कस्टेशन। सो अगर किसी को VMware वर्कस्टेशन चाहिए, सो आई एम हैविंग अ लिंक। मेरा नहीं है, मेरे पास किसी से आया था, आई विल शेयर इट। उसका क्रैक है, यू कैन डाउनलोड एंड इंस्टॉल इट। ओके, सो आई एम गोइंग टू क्रिएट अ वर्चुअल मशीन। आई विल गो विद टिपिकल ऑप्शन। यहाँ पे मैं मेरा ISO फाइल दे दूंगा क्योंकि मुझे अभी OS इंस्टॉल करना है। तो दिस में सर्वर 2019 OS। we'll move next। so 19 डिटेक्ट हो गया, विंडोज सर्वर 2019 डिटेक्टेड। नेक्स्ट यहाँ पे मैं मशीन का नाम दे रहा हूँ लंदन DC। क्यों लंदन DC दिया है हम बाद में जानेंगे एक्टिव डायरेक्टरी चैप्टर में। विल मूव नेक्स्ट। ओके, सो मेरा मशीन लंदन DC नाम से बना हुआ है। ओके, मैं उसको डिलीट कर देता हूँ, उसकी वैसे ही जरूरत नहीं। मैं कुछ चेंज नहीं कर रहा हूँ अभी। 60 GB का हार्ड ड्राइव लिया है, वो मैंने 60 GB का ही दिया है। मैं सिर्फ यहाँ पे एडिट वर्चुअल सेटिंग्स में जाऊंगा। अगर मैं VMware वर्कस्टेशन यूज कर रहा हूँ तो मैं फ्लॉपी को डिलीट कर दूंगा, ये फ्लॉपी सेलेक्ट करके डिलीट कर दूंगा, और ये जो नेटवर्क अडेप्टर है उसको होस्ट ओनली डाल दूंगा, होस्ट ओनली डाल दूंगा। ठीक है, बाकी मैंने कुछ चेंज नहीं किया। जो इसने मेरा मेमोरी उठाया, प्रोसेसर उठाया है और हार्ड ड्राइव उठाया 60 GB, मैं सेम कॉन्फ़िगरेशन दे रहा हूँ। अभी हम इसको पावर ऑन करेंगे। मैं अंदर क्लिक करूंगा माउस से और बूट फ्रॉम हार्ड ड्राइव पे क्लिक कर दूंगा, एंटर मार दूंगा। सो मेरा इंस्टॉलेशन स्टार्ट हो गया है। सो यहाँ पे मैं लैंग्वेज टू इंस्टॉल इंग्लिश यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स, टाइम एंड करेंसी फॉर्मेट इंग्लिश यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स, कीबोर्ड यूएसई यूज करते हैं हम 102 की। सो हम वो कुछ चेंज नहीं करेंगे फिलहाल। यहाँ पे हम टाइम एंड करेंसी आगे अंदर चल के कैसे चेंज करना है वो हम चेंज कर देंगे। आई क्लिक ऑन इंस्टॉल नाउ। अभी यहाँ पे मेरे पास 4 ऑपरेटिंग सिस्टम आ रहे हैं। अगर हम ध्यान से देखें तो 2 एडिशन है, स्टैंडर्ड एडिशन, डेटा सेंटर एडिशन। कल हमने एडिशंस की बात की थी या नहीं की थी? राइट, हमने स्टैंडर्ड एडिशन और डेटा सेंटर एडिशंस की बात की थी। अभी जो मेरा डेस्कटॉप एक्सपीरियंस है वो मेरा GUI बेस्ड इंस्टॉलेशन है, मतलब ग्राफिकल इंस्टॉलेशन है। लेकिन बाय डिफॉल्ट कर्सर यहाँ पे सिलेक्टेड था फर्स्ट वाले पे, विच इज द डिफॉल्ट इंस्टॉलेशन मेथड। यानी जो मेरा डिफॉल्ट इंस्टॉलेशन मेथड है वो कोर है, सर्वर कोर, विच इज अ कमांड बेस्ड ऑपरेटिंग सिस्टम। सो अभी फिलहाल हम सर्वर कोड नहीं डालेंगे, मैं इंस्टॉलेशन दिखाऊंगा बाद में, और उसको कैसे मैनेज करते हैं वो भी दिखाऊंगा। सो अभी मैं 2019 डेटा सेंटर एडिशन सेलेक्ट कर रहा हूँ और डेस्कटॉप एक्सपीरियंस सेलेक्ट कर रहा हूँ। विल मूव नेक्स्ट। विल एक्सेप्ट द लाइसेंस टर्म्स। नेक्स्ट। नाउ यहाँ पे हमारे पास 2 ऑप्शन है। फर्स्ट इज अपग्रेड। ठीक है, अपग्रेड मेरे को समझ में आता है। अगर मेरा 2012 का मशीन है, 2016 एडिशन है, मैं उसको अपग्रेड कर सकता हूँ। लेकिन सेकंड है कस्टम, which says इंस्टॉल विंडोज ओनली। तो कस्टम क्यों दिया है माइक्रोसॉफ्ट ने? माइक्रोसॉफ्ट को ये चेंज करना चाहिए नहीं, लेकिन माइक्रोसॉफ्ट ये कहता है कस्टम मतलब आपको नया डालना है, सो यू कैन गो विद दिस। यानी फ्रेश इंस्टॉलेशन वाला ऑप्शन है हमारा, इंस्टॉल विंडोज ओनली विद द कस्टम ऑप्शंस। सो विल गो विद द सेकंड ऑप्शंस। ये हमारा रॉ हार्ड ड्राइव आ गया, वी विल क्लिक ऑन न्यू, उसको पार्टीशन कर देंगे। तो मेरे पास 60 GB का है, आई एम कंज्यूमिंग दी फुल 60 GB। आई विल क्लिक अप्लाई। सो माइक्रोसॉफ्ट बोल रहा है कि भाई मुझे कुछ पार्टीशंस बनाने सिस्टम के लिए, मुझे परमिशन दे दो। अगर मैं कैंसिल कर दूंगा तो इंस्टॉलेशन कैंसिल, यानी मेरे पास कुछ ऑप्शन नहीं है। सो क्लिक ओके। ठीक है, 4 पार्टीशन बनाए, उसमें से प्राइमरी। नाउ माय ओएस कैन बी इंस्टॉल्ड ओनली ऑन अ प्राइमरी पार्टीशन, ओनली ऑन अ प्राइमरी पार्टीशन व्हिच इज बाय डिफॉल्ट सिलेक्टेड। विल मूव नेक्स्ट। सो मेरा इंस्टॉलेशन स्टार्ट हो गया है। मैं ये इंस्टॉलेशन चलने देता हूँ, 5-7 मिनट्स में कंप्लीट हो जाएगा। उसके बाद मैं कुछ नहीं करूंगा, आई विल सेव द मशीन स्टेट और हम मंडे कंटिन्यू करेंगे। ओके, if you have any doubts, I'll open the window for doubts.